Shalom, brothers and sisters. Shalom. Giving honor and praise unto the Most High, the Creator and the Maker of heaven and earth. My name is Yeshaya Yisrael of the tribe of Dan of the nation of Israel. This particular presentation, I'm not even going to start off by saying it's not going to be long because, brothers and sisters, it is 48 slides that we will be dealing with. This presentation, brothers and sisters, is due to the fact that there are people who are saying that the land of Israel, which is our land as Israelites, is to be found in the Western Hemisphere. There were thoughts that were saying that the city of Jerusalem is truly in Peru. There were people who were saying that the waters by California and Mexico is where the Exodus happened in the Bible. There were those brothers and sisters who were saying that the place where the Mississippi River is truly to be treated as the Nile River, and that Egypt is truly geographically, not only spiritually, in the place that we call America of today. So what we want to do, brothers and sisters, is go over this particular presentation to show logically, scripturally, geographically, that such is not the case. I do not claim to know everything, and I am open, brothers and sisters, to constructive criticism. So, without any further ado, and giving honor to the Creator of heaven and earth, the madness in saying that Israel, the land, is in America, is presented. Let us go. The word that you see there, brothers and sisters, all right? We want to take the time out now and type this in, if we will. Is the word in Hebrew, it is said as the word zaphon. All right? So let us read, brothers and sisters, in the Bible, in the scriptures, in Jeremiah, chapter 1. It says this, and the word of Yah came unto me the second time, saying, what seest thou? And I said, I see a seething pot, and the face thereof is toward the north. Then Yah said unto me, out of the north an evil shall break forth upon all the inhabitants of the land. For lo, I will call all the families of the kingdoms of the north, saith Yah, and they shall come, and they shall set everyone his throne at the entering of the gates of Jerusalem, and against all the wall thereof round about, and against all the cities of Judah. So, brothers and sisters, when it says about the aspect of the seething pot, that is, seething is something that is being boiled, something that will be made to be hot, if we will. And what is going on in that particular case is that there's going to be, as it states in there, right? Evil shall break forth out of the north, meaning out of the north of where the Israelites were at. And it mentions the kingdoms of the north. And it says that everyone shall set his throne at the entering of the gates of Jerusalem, and against all the walls thereof round about, and against all the cities of Judah. So we want to, brothers and sisters, understand about these walls, because we're going to talk about that as we go along in this presentation. Let us go on, if we will, to the next part. Thank you. The words of Jeremiah, the son of Hilkiah, of the priests that were in Anatot, in the land of Benjamin, to whom the word of Yah came in the days of Josiah, the son of Ammon, king of Judah, in the 13th year of his reign. It also came in the days of Jehoiakim, the son of Josiah, king of Judah, until the end of the 11th year of Zedekiah, the son of Josiah, king of Judah, until the carrying away of Jerusalem captive in the 5th month. So, brothers and sisters, this captivity that happened in the 11th year of King Zedekiah was equivalent to the year 586 BCE. Prior to that, during the era of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, the grandson of King Josiah, there was a captivity that was being done. And in this one is when the prophet Daniel, brothers and sisters, and the prophet Ezekiel was taken into the Babylonian captivity. That being dated to 597 BCE. So we want to go over and talk about this for reference purposes. In the British Museum, they actually have artifacts showing the Babylonians in cuneiform writing, speaking about them capturing the people of Judah. So it's not too hard to figure out what's going on. Let's go on to the next slide. Thank you. Jeremiah chapter 46, verse 1 through verse 2. The word of Yah, which came to Jeremiah the prophet concerning the Gentiles, against Egypt, against the army of Pharaoh Necho, king of Egypt, which was by the river Euphrates in Carchemish, which Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, smote in the 4th year of Jehoiakim, the son of Josiah, king of Judah. Order your buckler and shield and draw near to battle. So, brothers and sisters, what we want to point out here is the fact that it mentions, if we will, and show the matter of Carchemish. And here we want to underline this and bold it. Carchemish, brothers and sisters, was within the land of the East. So how can we have a concept that says, brothers and sisters, that the land of Israel, where Josiah was, where Jehoiakim was, where Jehoiachin and Zedekiah were, where Jeremiah was, is in the Western Hemisphere? Such is not the case, because Carchemish, as well as the river Euphrates, is in the land of the East. So the Bible shows you geographically what's being spoken of. So that's why we wanted to go over this particular part first. North of America is Canada. The history of Canada goes back to it being quote unquote discovered in the year, say, 1500 by a guy named Cabral or something of that kind of nature, if we will. But brothers and sisters, we know good and well that the land of Israel is not in the Western Hemisphere. So to the people who commented, Shalom, to the sister Sarai, Machpelah from the house of Judah, and to the person, I don't know, male or female, I'm sorry, Light of Israel, Shalom and much love and respect to you as well. I spoke to a relative of mine, and I understand that there are different Israelites keeping Passover at different times. But one of the things that we can have as Israel is love and respect, and we don't need a calendar for that. See, the situation that we see correlating it to what we're talking about is that the Israelites in those days and times then have that ahaba, love, and that kabod, respect. Or Israel look religious. So we don't want to do that, be it one from the house of Judah or one as the Light of Israel. And thank you both for the comments in the comments section. Let us go on, if we will. 2 Chronicles 39, pardon me, 2 Chronicles 35, verse 19 through verse 20. And it says, in the 18th year of the reign of Josiah was this Passover kept. After all this, when Josiah had prepared the temple, Necho, king of Egypt, came up to fight against Carchemish by the Euphrates, and Josiah went out against him. We want to point out that this battle mentioned here, in which Josiah was assassinated, was the Battle of Megiddo. So that's something we want to point out, brothers and sisters, in this particular case. Now, what was going on, we want to point out too, is that Babylon was coming up as a power, and they defeated, brothers and sisters, the Assyrians, which was at that time the world power. So Egypt, feeling obligated to help Assyria, went out of their land to go to help Assyria, and in the process had to cross where the tribe of Judah was at. and Josiah went out to battle. And that's when he sadly was assassinated. Let us go on, if we will, to the next part. Biblical history. Jeremiah the prophet lived during the years when the Assyrian Empire was collapsing. Battles at Ashur, Khorsabad, Kala, and Nineveh by 612 BCE made Assyria become weak. Necho of Egypt, which is the 26th dynasty of Egypt, wanted to assist the Assyrians, but was unable to. Both Assyria and Egypt were defeated by Babylon. This made Babylon a world empire. So this is something we want to point out in that particular case. When Assyria fell in the 7th century BCE to the Babylonians came up as a power. For those who are into the history, maybe a little heavier, you will know when Babylon fell to the Persians. Brothers and sisters, in the 6th century BCE, the Persians came as a power. When the Persians fell as a world power to the Greeks, in the 4th century BCE, the people of the Greeks became a world power. When the Greeks fell to the Romans, brothers and sisters, in 168 BCE, and then again in 146 BCE, Rome comes up as a power. Brothers and sisters, when Rome imploded in the 5th century AD, by that time the children of Israel were already, for the most part, out of their own land. So these are things we just want to talk about for edification purposes. Now, again, the places where we're talking about is in the lands of the East, as pointed out. Let's go on. The kings we are talking about. Nabopolassar, 626 BCE, began to reign. Nebuchadnezzar, 606 BCE, began to reign. Ashur Lilani of Assyria, 626 BCE, began to reign. Ashurbanipal, 612 BCE, is when Assyria fell. Brothers and sisters, that's something we want to go over because we want to show the dating that we're talking about, the people we're talking about, and then let's go on. And please remember this particular timeline. Now, let's look at this right here, if we will. All right. Josephus chapter 10. Josephus book 10, chapter 6. Sorry. Now, in the 4th year of the reign of Jehoiakim, one whose name was Nebuchadnezzar took the government over the Babylonians, who at the same time went up with a great army to the city of Carchemish, which is at Euphrates, upon a resolution he had taken to fight with Necho, king of Egypt, under whom all Syria then was. And when Necho understood the intention of the king of Babylon, and that this expedition was made against him, he did not despise his attempt, but made haste with a great band of men to Euphrates to defend himself from Nebuchadnezzar. And when they had joined battle, he was beaten. Brothers and sisters, the Egyptians lost to the Babylonians. In the Bible, we read about this in the book of 2 Kings chapter 24. So that's what we want to point out in that particular case. Next slide, please. What are we looking at here in this map? Here we see Egypt, Ethiopia, Arabia, Babylon, Susa, Asia, all in this area here. Libya. But what we want to focus on is here is the area, brothers and sisters, where Carchemish was. This is where the Assyrians were at here. Necho came out of Egypt and went through the Sinai and had to cross where Judah was in order to get into battle with the Babylonians. So again, we can show this in the lands of the East. And we show the people's names in the scriptures. Let's go on. Mesopotamia. Literally, the name Mesopotamia means the land between the rivers in Greek. Meso is middle or between, and potam is a root word for river, also seen in the word hippopotamus or river horse. So that's just a little aspect of etymology right there. What are we looking at, brothers and sisters? This is, as we can see here, Mesopotamia, if we will. Here we see Sumer, Iraq, Chaldea, Babylonia, Susa, Assyria, Nineveh, Ashur, Kalhu, Canaan, Lebanon, Syria, Jerusalem, Jordan, the Nile River, the Mediterranean Sea. All of this area here is in the land, as we've been talking about, okay, in the land of the East. So when we talk about, if we will, Mesopotamia, which is in the East, this is what we're talking about. If you're saying that the true land of Israel, brothers and sisters, is in the West, where is Mesopotamia in the West? And by West, in the United States. Pardon me. Just wanted to ask that question in that particular matter. Now, to the brothers and sisters who say that, well, Israelites hate Africa and so forth and so on. Some do. There are Israelites who do hate Africa, sadly. But despite those particular mental sellouts, we want to ask this question here. If what is referred to, like this area here referred to as the Levant, if this area here, as well as in Egypt, is truly part of Africa, and my brother who is Pan-African, if we will, if the said Middle East is truly part of what we call Africa, and we are truly Africans, then why do you say that we, the Israelites, are wrong when we claim the land that was formerly known as Canaan as ours? Would not Canaan land by default be part of Africa? And if we are Africans, as you say, then what is wrong with us claiming that land? Why are you so quick to be okay with the other nations, the Europeans, the descendants of the Ptolemies, the descendants of the Seleucids, the descendants of the people of Rome, if you will, as well? Why are you okay with them being the holders of the land when you're saying that's truly ours? That, my friend, is how we know, no disrespect intended, games have been and are played. So, without any further ado, let us continue on in this presentation. Numbers chapter 13:22 and notes. And they ascended by the south and came unto Hebron, where Ahiman, Shishai, and Talmai, the children of Anak, were. Now Hebron was built 7 years before Zoan in Egypt. So what are we pointing out right here? You know what Anak is? Is referred to in other languages as the Anunnaki, the giants, if you will. Now we want to point something out. The Nephilim are not giants. The giants in the scriptures was referred to in this case as the Anakim, or the sons of Anak, or inside of the cuneiform records. All right? Whereas the Nephilim that you see in Genesis, brothers and sisters, is more so about the aspect of the Naphal, that is the fallen ones. When we read, for instance, that the sons of God went into the daughters of men, that is not angels from the heavens coming down and having sex with human females. That is men of renown that should not be dealing with harlots, that was just dealing with women that was not of a certain caliber. So this is something we want to point out. Now, getting back to this, right? Now, Hebron was built 7 years before Zoan in Egypt. So again, the point in going over this is because we are talking about lands and geography, brothers and sisters. All right. Zoan is also known as Tanis. This area too is known as Per Ramise. In Exodus chapter 1, verse 11, that is referred to it there as an anachronism. That is to say that when they say that the Israelites in the Bible built Pitom and Ramses, those were the same cities the Israelites built, but it wasn't called that at the time. It was called it later on, but it was called Rurati. It was called Peru Nefer. It was called later on as Avaris. And this is the same vicinity, brothers and sisters, that the Greeks called Tanis, and that the Bible there refers to as the land of Zoan. So we want to show what we're talking about geographically and so on. Let us go, if you will, to the next part. Isaiah chapter 30, verse 1 through 4. Let's go. Woe to the rebellious children, saith Yah, that take counsel, but not of me, and that cover with the covenant, but not of my spirit, that they may add sin to sin, that walk to go down into Egypt, and have not asked at my mouth, to strengthen themselves in the strength of Pharaoh, and to trust in the shadow of Egypt. And it goes on to say, therefore shall the strength of Pharaoh be your shame, and the trust in the shadow of Egypt your confusion. For his princes were at Zoan, and his ambassadors came from Hanes. Now, let's look at the map here. Here we see Tanis. And that, as we pointed out, brothers and sisters, is what the Greeks called the place that the Bible calls Zoan. See, these places cannot be found geographically and in history in the Western Hemisphere. These things, brothers and sisters, are found in the Eastern Hemisphere. So what people have done is looked at the things in the Eastern Hemisphere, found something similar in the Western Hemisphere, and said, see, it must really be right here. No, brothers and sisters. You had to look at Egypt. You had to look at Cush. You had to look at Hebron. You had to look at Sumer. You had to look at Assyria. You had to look at Mitanni in order to sit there and then try to find some kind of correlation with it being over here in the West. So you cannot insult the ancient East. And by the way, the word for ancient and the word for East in Hebrew have a lingual connection. The word for East is Quedma. The word for ancient is Quedum. The Qu, the M, the Kuf, the Dal, and the Mem stays consistent. This is where they get Kedem, what they call Kedem wine. That's what they're talking about, ancient or Eastern. So that's something we want to go over for edification purposes. Let's go on to the next slide, if we will. Thank you. Jeremiah 44, verse 1 through verse 2, letting the book speak. The word that came to Jeremiah concerning all the Jews, which we know is the Yehudim, or the people of Judea, they were called, which dwell in the land of Egypt, was dwelt at Migdol, and at Tapanhes, and at Noth, and in the country of Patros, saying, thus saith Yah of hosts, the power of God of Israel. Ye have seen all the evil I have brought upon Jerusalem and upon all the cities of Judah. And behold, this day they are a desolation, and no man dwelleth therein. Brothers and sisters, Egypt, Migdol, Tapanhes, Noth, and Patros. Let's go in. Noth is Memphis, referred to in ancient Egyptian as Menopher. Patros is Piteret, which is as you go toward the first cataract of the Nile, not far from what is the area known as Elephantine. Migdal, brothers and sisters, is in northern Egypt, or what they call Lower Egypt. And Tapanhes, we see right here on the map. Tapanhes. The Greeks called that particular land Tapanhes, that we read in Jeremiah 44. They called it Daphne, Daphne. So brothers and sisters, again, These lands that we're talking about, if we will, are in the lands of the East, not in the lands of the West. All right? So let us, brothers and sisters, continue on in this particular realm and in this particular thoughts. All right? And it goes on to say, Hebron, meaning friendship. That's what the word Hebron said in Hebrew is Hebron. And the meaning of it, not the transliteration, but the translation, is friendship from the word kabal, which means to tie. Because when you're dealing in a friendship, it's something that's binded and tied together. Let's go on. That he may give me the cave of Machpelah, which he has, which is in the end of his field, for as much money as it is worth. He shall give it me for a possession of a burial place among you. And what we're reading is in Genesis 23. And after this, Abraham buried Sarah, his wife, in a cave of the field of Machpelah before Mamre, the same as Hebron in the land of Canaan. And he charged them and said unto them, I am to be gathered unto my people. Bury me with my fathers in a cave that is in the field of Ephron the Hittite, and a cave that is in the field of Machpelah, which is before Mamre in the land of Canaan, which Abraham bought with a field of Ephron the Hittite for a possession of a burying place. For his sons carried him into the land of Canaan and buried him in the cave of the field of Machpelah, which Abraham bought with the field for a possession of a burying place of Ephron the Hittite before Mamre. So the portions we read come out of, brothers and sisters, the book of Genesis, chapter 23, chapter 49, and chapter 50. When it says, for his sons carried him, that's talking about Jacob being carried. They are buried in the land of Canaan. There was a slave song talking about, bring me to the land of Canaan. Our people didn't think the Holy Land was over here in the West. Martin Luther King, he said before his death that he may not make it with you to the promised land. He said that in his speech, April 3rd, 1968 in Tennessee. In the same speech, Martin Luther King spoke about the tribe of Levi. Let's get our studying on. Let's go on. The cave of Machpelah. During the era of Herod, there was, as we see, a structure like this built over the caves. Hebron, today a Palestinian territory, is 30 kilometers south of Jerusalem, this being a little over 18 miles. The word Machpelah means portion. What if I told you that root word comes from an Ethiopian word? What if I told you that Hebrew is connected in linguistics with Ge'ez and Amharic and Aramaic, and is part of the Afro-Asiatic languages and not the Indo-European? Let's go on. Sorry about that. Josephus, book 1, chapter 6, and book 2, chapter 7. What do we see here? We want to expand this, if we will, right? Japheth, the son of Noah, had 7 sons. They inhabited that beginning at the mountains, Taurus and Amanus. They proceeded along Asia as far as the river Tansis and along Europe to Cadiz. Now, as to Javan and Madai, the sons of Japheth, from Madai came the Medians, who are called Medes, are the Greeks, and from Javan, Ionia, and all the Grecians are derived. Brothers and sisters, what do we see? It says from Javan, sorry about that. Ionia, or the Ionians, or the Greeks. Yawan, Ion. The Grecians are derived. Now, let's remember this slide right here, because we're going to talk about these Greeks. Cadiz is in Spain, if we will, as we pointed out on this channel in the past. So this, brothers and sisters, is something that we want to, again, as been pointed out, expound upon for edification purposes. Let us go on. We want to expand this part here in that case. Jacob, encouraged by this dream, went on more cheerfully for Egypt with his sons and all belonging to them. Now they were in all 70. I once indeed thought it best not to set down the names of this family, especially because of their difficult pronunciation by the Greeks. But upon the whole, I think it necessary to mention those names, that I made this prove such as believe that we came not originally from Mesopotamia, but are Egyptians. So what is Josephus saying there? Is that the people, say in the time of Rome and others, thought that the Israelites descended from the Egyptians. Was not Moses mistaken as an Egyptian? He wasn't one, though, but he was thought of as one by the daughters of Jethro. So let's go back, if we will, and remember this part here about Mesopotamia. We want to show where this land is at. All right? Mesopotamia, as we see, is right here. The Bible in Ezekiel chapter 23, it says that the land of Chaldea, even the land of their nativity, speaking about the Israelites' nativity goes back to the area where the Sumerians were, where the Elamites were, where the Chaldeans were, because Abraham came from Ur of Chaldees. So we want to point that out for edification purposes. I watched the video earlier, and somebody was saying in it, what do we think, and to put it in the comments, in Africa. And I've put in a comment that I think one of the biggest lies concerning Africa is the idea that Africa was monolithic, because it was not monolithic. All right? So let us go on here. According to Josephus, it says that Jacob and his family came from Mesopotamia, but were thought of to be as Egyptians. So something had to give. They maybe have to look like Egyptians. What you think? For those who know where we're going. The world as known to the Hebrews. You have Shem, Ham, Japheth. That's where we want to point out in that particular case. Of course, we know these sons expanded greater, but we're talking about the understanding where the immediate Hebrews would be at. Where would they think the world began to stop, so to speak? Josephus, book 1. And let us expand this out, if we will. The children of Ham possessed the land from Syria to Amanus and the mountains of Libanus, seizing upon all that was its sea coast and as far as the ocean, and keeping it as their own. For the 4 sons of Ham, Tom has not at all heard the name of Cush for the Ethiopians, over whom he reigned, are even at this day, both by themselves and by all men in Asia, called Cushites. Put, or Phut, also was the founder of Libya, and called the inhabitants Putites from himself. There is also a river in the country of Moors, which bears that name. Brothers and sisters, we've been talking about the Moors periodically. There's an organization of brothers calling themselves Moors that say that they are indigenous to the Americas. You got some Moors of today saying that we are the original Moabites. You got some Moors of today saying that we are the original people of the Caribbean. And that Grenada that the Moors fought back in the day was not in Spain, but rather was Grenada, the island in the west. What we are looking at right here on the right-hand side is part of the mountains of, as you see here, Libanus. Libanus is the same as Lebanon. So this here is part of the mountains of such. So we just want to go over that for edification purposes. Next slide. Exodus chapter 14. And the children of Israel removed from Ramesses and pitched in Sukkot. And they departed from Sukkot and pitched in Etham, which is in the edge of the wilderness. And they removed from Etham and turned toward Pihahirot, which is before Baal Zephon, and they pitched before Migdal. And they departed from before Pihahirot and passed through the midst of the sea into the wilderness, and went 3 days' journey into the wilderness of Etham and pitched in Marah. Now, what is the point in this? Talking about the Exodus. Passover is coming up for many of us. So this is how it kind of ties in to this particular matter, if we will. All right. Now, we look at this map right here. Way of the Philistines, way of Shur, way of Arabia, land of Midian, wilderness of the Red Sea, Arabia. The Bible talks about the Arabian in the desert. Where can that be found within the Western Hemisphere? Brothers and sisters, the land of Israel is not in the Western Hemisphere. That is mad teaching. Mad as in crazy. Let's go on. Here we see the Mediterranean Sea. All right? Great Sea, Sea of Philistia, West Goshen, Sukkot, the way to the land of the Philistines, the way to Shur, all in this map right here. Let's go on, if we will, to the next part. If I can be heard, give me a 1, brothers and sisters. All right. Can I be heard? Please type in a 1. Thank you, brothers and sisters. All right, let's go on. Numbers chapter 34. And Yah spoke unto Moses, saying, command the children of Israel and say unto them, when ye come into the land of Canaan, this is the land that ye shall fall unto you for an inheritance, even the land of Canaan with the coast thereof. Then your south quarter shall be from the wilderness of Zin, along by the coast of Edom, and your south border shall be the outmost coast of the Salt Sea, eastward. Told off for typing in the 1, sister. And your border shall turn from the south to the ascent of Akrabim, and pass on to Zin, and the going forth thereof shall be from the south to Kadesh Barnea, and they shall go on to Hazar Radar and pass on to Asmon. Where are these lands at in the west? And the border shall fetch a compass from Asmon unto the river, and the goings out of it shall be at the sea. And as for your western border, you shall have the great sea for a border. This shall be your west border. Let's go on to the next slide, brothers and sisters. Ezekiel 47, verse 9 through 10. And it shall come to pass that everything that liveth, which moveth whithersoever the rivers shall come, shall live. And there shall be a very great multitude of fish, because these waters shall come thither. For they shall be healed, and everything shall live whither the river cometh. So we don't call that the Dead Sea, we call it the Live Sea, as the Israelites in the land do. Let's go on. And it shall come to pass that the fishes shall stand upon it from En-gedi even unto Eneglaim. They shall be a place to spread forth nets. Their fish shall be according to their kinds, as the fish of the great sea, exceeding many. So when somebody may have asked, were there any fishermen spoken of in the scriptures? Yeah, right there. That's in Ezekiel 47. What it points out to is, brothers and sisters, En-gedi. And we want to bold type that part. Sorry about that. And here we see En-gedi. And what they want to call the Dead Sea, which is really like the Live Sea, talks about that right there. Where is the Jordan River in the Western Hemisphere if Israel, the land, is truly in the Western Hemisphere? Where is the Dead Sea? Where's the Sea of Kinneret? What's they call the Sea by Nazareth? Where are these places at geographically in the Western Hemisphere? The longest river in America is the Mississippi River. The Mississippi River, like the Nile River, flows north. The Jordan River, like the name implies in the Hebrew, Jordan, Yarden, Yarad, means to descend. So the Jordan River goes south. So that's what we want to point out in that particular case. There is no Jordan River like unto that, dividing east and western Israel, according to the tribes. This is why, while in captivity or in exile, it is not very important to even make a tribal chart. But let's go on. The matter with Israel's enemies, Kaftor, is a locality mentioned in the Bible in which its people are called Kaftorites or Kaftorim.